Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of That 80s Child, The Generation Y. And my name is Gabrielle. In this episode, we are going to be discussing renting movies like Blockbuster nights and just having that family time where you just let's go rent a movie, go get something, get some popcorn, get some candy, and just have fun and then hope that you don't forget and then they get charged fees for when you're late bringing things back. We would rent movies, but probably not as much as some. We would definitely have Blockbuster nights. The movies that would just be coming out from the theater, which is so much quicker nowadays from going from having the movie still in the movie theater and then being advertised on whatever streaming services that you might have, saying like, have a look at this movie. And, you know, the fact that it's already out, that I can watch it again shortly after it leaving the movie theater. It was a lot longer. Movies would be sitting in the movie theater a lot longer, and then you had to wait a lot longer before the movie would be available. And then as soon as it was, you either, had to, you didn't get it or whatever. Blockbuster, as well as they weren't rental places. The only one that we ever really visited was Blockbuster. But to go get your movies, you had Suncoast Video and also Movies Unlimited that my mom used to go to. Now, my mom collected a lot of VHS tapes, and then eventually it switched over to DVDs to the point where she bought a lot of the stuff that we had on VHS to the DVD version as soon as they were available. And I still have all of her DVDs, and she has over 300 of them. It's crazy. She has a huge collection of vinyl records, over 300 of those. Her book collection is probably over 500. Besides my dad's collections of things that we're still lugging around, these are things that I have to really think about whenever we do eventually move, because I am hoping that within the next 2 years I'll be able to buy a house. We'll see. And I don't know if I'm going to be wanting to lug all of that stuff around for the rest of my life, and then eventually having my son Bryce to be able to inherit those. Of course, the records, we're not getting rid of those. The DVDs, I'm not going to get rid of the DVD. There are DVDs that she has, or even ones that I were gifted, that you can't find anymore, or that they're there, but it's very expensive because it's out of print now, and you can't even find it on a streaming service. So they're like random movies that I do enjoy, and you really can't find them anywhere. So of course I'm not going to get rid of them. And I know that DVDs don't have a everlasting shelf life. Life shelf? I know what I'm talking. Dyslexic. Not only did we rent movies at Blockbuster, you also had the games that you would rent. So we didn't have a huge collection of console game array. We had, a good little selection of things that we particularly liked to play and replay. I think our largest collection was for the NES, and it was, my dad had gotten a used one at the flea market, and somebody was getting rid of all of their original games, and we had a ton of them. However, I don't know what happened to all of those games, or the Nintendo for that matter. My brother was instructed to help clean our basement and our attic and the upstairs garage when we were trying to clear everything out, and this was like before we even moved. And he had a tendency to throw things away that shouldn't have been thrown away. I highly doubt he would have thrown the Nintendo stuff away, so I don't really know what actually happened to that. Maybe he sold it. I have no idea. But I wouldn't be surprised. So, yeah, so we would rent games at Blockbuster as well. That was a little bit more expensive, but you were allowed to actually take them out for a little bit longer, because you can't just play a game overnight. It's not just a movie where you watch it and then you're okay, we watched it, let's put it, we can bring it back. The game, it takes a little bit longer depending on when it is that you rented it, and then you wanted to be able to play it, and if you're not at school. So yeah, we would rent movies that mainly just came out that we wanted to rewatch or see, or we didn't get to see it in the movie theater, so we went ahead and rented. And my mom would have she had gotten from Entertainment Weekly that she, I guess, wrote in for. She won a hot air popcorn popper. So we never actually got popcorn out. So like I know they would sell like the ones you could put on the stove and even the ones in the microwave and all that at Blockbuster, but we never actually got anything other than like maybe some candy. We would get candy. But the popcorn, my mom would get the kernels and she would hot air pop them and then melt butter and then salt and all that lovely stuff. And then we would sit down and we'd have like a nice little movie night. And while it is, we don't necessarily we don't really want to rent, hence the reason why we have a lot of streaming stuff. We're paying for it. If I if I want to rewatch it, or if it's one of my favorite movies, I'm just going to go out and buy the Blu-ray or the DVD or something like that. You can even purchase them digitally, but I have become a little jaded when it comes to digital content because we don't have internet for some reason, or the earth suffers an EMP and we no longer have it. I won't have them anymore. So it's just like, and we won't have power. So I can't go and get my DVD and watch it, but at least I have something physical to actually take with me. I don't know. And it's not like I can take it with me when I am no longer here, but regardless, the fact that you have something in your hand and not just some figment of idea that like, okay, I own this piece of digital coding that I can only access through certain things. It's, I don't know. And then there were times where when we would go and rent a movie and we were just going there specifically to look at the new releases, you would also have, say, maybe everybody rented it. It was like a very popular movie. Say it was like Jurassic Park when it first came out on VHS, and everybody's just like running to Blockbuster or whatever to rent it, and we go to get it, and my mom would have already bought it on VHS. It wouldn't be rented, so it wouldn't have mattered. But we would go and say nothing was available. And then you would have a look around. It's like, well, we're already out. We're renting a movie. So it'd be, sometimes we would find some like really random movies, my mom specifically. And then we would watch that. Sometimes they weren't worth it. But yeah. And then also you might remember the area in the back that usually was covered or the tapes were turned over so you couldn't see anything. And so yeah, it was just like porn stuff, and you're like, what's over there? And like, even if you weren't that much interested in it, it's just because of the fact that it was in the cover of darkness over there and the no area, and it's just like, you just kind of be like, I just want to go and look, just because I can't. I thought that was funny though, because there was I believe, I don't know if it was Movies Unlimited, and then there was like Suncoast Video that you could go to, but there was one place that actually had like a curtain that you could go in it was like in the corner, and I'm like, unless you were 21 years or older, you couldn't go beyond the curtain. Okay. So my mom was very much a TV guide reader. You remember those? I know that, I don't even know if they still have like a website anymore, because who freaking watches normal television anymore, to be honest. So any show or movie that she wanted to see, and say she didn't want to go and rent it, or it wasn't available, say it was completely sold out there to rent, so she would highlight it when a movie would come on, and she would set up the VCR to record it. So I had up in my notes, it's like homemade movies and mom recording from the TV. So not only are we having like the rental movie night, we would also have the movies that she recorded. And on either side we had a really nice fireplace in our living room, and a working fireplace. I hate the fact that, side note, I hate the fact that every one of these, I'm looking at these houses just to gauge how much everything is. Very expensive, way out of my league. That's where we're at. But these houses that had fireplaces and they're closed off. Now, I know that, I think there was something that they're trying to, because for safety and all that stuff, but I miss our fireplace. I really do. I really wish they didn't close off, unless it was a danger and they couldn't fix it. But I really hate that they close off, especially these older houses that have these beautiful ornate mantles, and then they have these like fake candles, or like the ones that just flicker. And I'm like, this is sad. This is very, very sad. This should be a roaring fire, and it should look beautiful. And here we are with these 21st century pieces of shit candles. Anyhow, so our fireplace. It was like a brick fireplace, really nice, and crappy mantle though. It was, it's from the like 50s. Either side of the fireplace was cabinets. And my mom filled those cabinets on both sides with our movie collection. And she would systematically go through them with her stickers with the numbers 1 through 5 million, however many we had. And I know it went into the 3 digits, okay? And she actually made a catalog. We actually had a book that she had, it was supposed to be for like a journal or something, and she made a book, and it was our movie collection. So at any given night, if we just was like, hey, we want to watch a movie, yeah, we would go to Blockbuster, go to rent a movie, but we had like 300 movies that my mom had. And on some of these VHS tapes, there were 3 movies on one VHS tape. So you had to know, and she even had some of them, not all of them, the actual time stamp as to when one movie ended and then the next movie began. This is how ridiculous, okay? But it also gave us that option of like, okay, what do we feel like? Do we want something? She just did it. I think she did it alphabetical order. However, I think it would have been better if I was to do it to be genre, So here's your alphabetical order within genre, but do genre and then alphabetical order. So you have your comedies, your rom-coms, your thrillers, and all that, and but it's fine. She did an excellent job at keeping all of those. Everything was in there, and she was Be Kind, Rewind. Made sure everything was back to where it was when we were done. I missed that because my mom kind of recreated that with the DVDs, and we have it all in the room that she was in before she went to the nursing home, and all of the DVDs are there, and I made sure I put them all back in order because as she progressed to getting worse, she was actually pulling all of them out. I had to find the artwork that went with the inserts and stuff like that for things. And some of the DVDs, I actually had to get rid of a few because she broke them, but that's neither here nor there. Saying that, so when she would actually record stuff from the television, that's how I remember a lot of these commercials that would be on random commercials, not like the really big ones that everybody can probably sing to whatever jingle it was. But there's some other ones. There was a Taco Bell one and they would be singing the Hit the Road Jack. And that was on one of the VHS tapes that we would watch, one of the movies that we watched a lot. And there was another one that I think it had Abbott and Costello, Hold That Ghost on it, because I love that. I love that movie. I've got it on DVD recently. I'm very happy about it. I might have actually watched it tonight, to be honest. And there was commercials that surrounded on either end. It was just, it's that's, anytime I hear those things, and I immediately think of whatever movie that came after because of my mom recording it from the TV. I know I named this Blockbuster Nights, and like I said, there's only so much you can talk about Blockbuster Nights, at least from my perspective. I know you probably, I don't know, somebody else could probably sit here for 40 minutes to just talk about Blockbuster. I miss Blockbuster. I miss that, having to go out and, as a family, even if it was just your mom or your dad that took you, or maybe you all went as a group, whatever, or with your friends, and you would just go and you choose a movie, and you'd have your candy and your popcorn and your soda or whatever it is that you had with it, and you had those moments, and it was an experience from start to finish. It wasn't just going on a streaming service and putting on a movie. It's not like the Netflix and chill, if whatever that means anymore, if that even means anything anymore. It was not just going on there and just popping. It was more of an experience. It was, everybody agreeing on something in the, once you made that decision, you couldn't just be like, what, I don't really feel like that. And then you pause the movie and you go into something else. Once you made the decision, you rented the movie, you're going to watch it, whether you like it or not. We're all doing this. So it is a shame that we don't have that experience anymore, because I feel like that brought the family and friends together instead of it just being an offhanded thing nowadays where it's just yeah, we have all of these movies at our fingertips, but, do we do it as a group or do we just sit watching it alone? I'm so used to watching movies with my mom and my dad, and then when my dad was no longer, was with my mom, and then my brother. And then when my brother was not with us, I mean, he's alive, but he didn't live with us anymore. And then with my son, and then, it just, now I'm like, we still watch movies together. I miss having my mom watching the movies, even though sometimes she could be so annoying because she would constantly, especially movies that we've seen a million times. So I guess at that point, like, I know what's going to happen, but she would recite the next line, or she would talk while it was happening. Now, like I said, if it's an older movie and I've seen it a million times, that's fine. But when you're seeing a movie you hadn't seen in a while, or it was one that you've never seen before, but maybe she has, that gets annoying when you're like, okay, can you shush? I'm trying to be, like, I get very immersed in a movie, and I really don't like to be bothered, especially when it's a movie I haven't seen, or I've only maybe seen once and I don't remember a lot of it. So I want to experience it. That is the point of a movie. I want to experience it. So while she could be annoying on that respect, I do miss that togetherness that we used to have. And like I said, I still watch movies with Bryce, but it's few and far between. The only time really is when we go to the movie theater now, to be honest. And that's kind of like a forced thing. And it's kind of like renting a movie, to be honest. It's just, as, paying for it to be the new release thing, because he wants to go and see the Minecraft movie, even though it's supposed to be like a kids movie, but he grew up with Minecraft and played it for years. And it's kind of like a full circle moment where you're seeing like this game that you played. And I find Minecraft to be an odd choice of game to make into a movie, while I could see them really like pushing the whole franchising or something, I guess you can say, where they're putting out like toys and anything else that could go along with the movie. So I can see where they're getting the money for like marketing and bringing all that stuff in. However, it really wasn't a game that had like some sort of deep story to it. So it is kind of an odd choice, but okay. I was like I said to Bryce, I'm like, it didn't have a story, so really they had free reign to figure out what type of story they wanted to tell with the dynamic of Minecraft world. So how were they gonna? I haven't seen it yet, so that's gonna be interesting when we do go and see. I was just waiting for all of the nonsense to calm down and go and see it when nobody else is there. Besides renting movies and recording stuff off the television, you also had your homemade movies, which you like home movies, not homemade movies. Although unless you had like scripts and stuff, and you had your friends do it. My brother and I would hold talk shows or radio shows. I found a cassette tape recently that has a radio. I don't have a cassette player anymore. The last like Walkman, like the Sony Walkman that I had, I believe is broken, and I think I got rid of it when we moved the last time. So I have to find a cassette player or get one of those things that does, because Bryce wants to have a new record player that has the record player, the CD player, and the cassette player, which I'm like, maybe only so I can like listen to this cassette so anyway, it was a radio show, which we do the weather, we would talk about whatever that like something that happened in the house, and we would do that all the time. And I would also script stuff for us to record outside. We even did music videos and songs. And because you, at the time when you were doing recording videos, it wasn't like a digital recorder, it wasn't a mini DV or whatever, it was a full-on cassette tape or VHS tape. So this was a big thing. So we would actually have like a tripod for it, because it was heavy. And I would set it up, and we'd have, it would be, some of the time, I think it had like a battery pack on it, from what I can remember, because my mom would be walking around, and I highly doubt she would just have it plugged into someplace. I can't remember. I remember walking around with it. So I had to have a battery pack. Anyway, there were points where we had our VHS tapes that were specifically for what we recorded. So it was, you had your Christmas morning recordings, which I did a podcast about, it was after Christmas. I was a little late to the game, but go check that out if you haven't already. my mom, because we had so many VHS tapes, and say maybe one got like misplaced or something, and we recorded something on there that was for my brother and I, right? My dad had gotten these tapes from somebody at the flea market. I don't know who, and I don't know why. Why we couldn't just go. I My dad was very much into like, okay, well, he would barter things. Whether or not this was a barter thing, I'm not entirely sure. But he got all these VHS tapes. Unfortunately, the person, I guess, didn't tell my dad that what was on these VHS tapes. And we used them for Christmas morning recordings and our own, the stuff that my brother and I would do, we would record. And then when we would go back to watch them, and you got to the end of whatever it was that we recorded, you were in for another ride of some porn videos, some old 70s porn videos. It was sometimes it was shocking. So my mom actually systematically over time had gone back and just would hit record for regular television, and it would have just random stuff on that just so that it would record over that, so that if we ever did go back to reuse these VHS tapes for our own videos, whatever the heck that I wanted to use it for, or she like for memory's sake or whatever, and then you didn't, when you got to the end of it, you weren't being like, well, what the heck happened here? That was a change. With that being said, and putting all that to the side, do you think that can we actually have like these streaming services like Netflix night or a Disney night and still feel semi the same? Like, do you do that now where you're like, okay, everybody, we're all going to pick a movie and we're going to get some popcorn? I do see some families do this on my Facebook feed where they're like, it's movie night, we're watching this, it's a streaming service. But do you think that it's the same feeling as if you were to go out to the Blockbuster or whatever rental place that you went to and all picked out a movie and you came home and you all watched it? Is it the same feeling? For me personally, I don't think so. I think it is very different. I feel like it's not the same. Of course it's not going to be the same, but I don't feel like it's that same type of togetherness, because even when you see these family photos where like we're watching movies and this movie night and they have like their furry blankets and whatnot, some of the time you'll see the kids on their iPads or whatever electronic device while the movie's on the screen. So they're not really watching the movie with you. They might be in the same room with you and may glance up at some point. So like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not trying to say that, streaming is not great, because I utilize it all the time. There are things on there that I hadn't seen, especially for Disney. There was shows on there that I hadn't seen in forever and I hadn't been able to find. And now it's all on there because it was a Disney show. Like that show So Weird. I love that show, and I hadn't seen it around. And then now it's like on the Disney app and I'm like, this is great. But at the same time, I don't feel like at least the newer generations are really going to understand the idea of finding something that you hadn't seen in forever, because most of their stuff it's already digital anyway, and they can go and watch it whenever the heck they wanted to from the beginning. So it's not like they never were without it for any length of time. So like the Blockbuster nights and whatever, once you gave back that VHS tape, you no longer had it. You no longer could watch it. It's not like you could, unless you sat there and copied it, which you shouldn't be doing. Copyright infringement there. Piracy. Once you gave it back, that was that. You were done. And I feel like that the immediacy, and I've said this multiple times in every single one of my podcasts, that immediacy is, I think, a detriment, because we are so impatient nowadays because everything is on demand. Everything is, snap your fingers, I want it. Amazon, next day delivery, same day delivery, DoorDash. You don't even have to get up out of your chair anymore. It's very impersonal, and I think that has really caused a lot of problems overall because of that lack of connection. So like when you go out to Blockbuster, one, you not only were the only family there trying to find a movie, you're also, interacting with the workers there and, just getting out. Now it's just like I'm gonna go on my phone, my smart television, or my computer, or my iPad, whatever digital device you use, and I'm just gonna go search for something. You could be doing it on the toilet if you wanted to. So it's just like, I think that part of it is probably the worst because of that social part of it is we're missing. Even if you sit down with your family and have a family movie night, maybe have a look around and see how many of the people that you're having that quote unquote family movie night, and see how many are actually watching the movie with you. Or are they just kind of like there with you watching it on occasion and they're on some sort of digital device? Because I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'll sit and watch something with Bryce, and even like towards the end when I was still watching regular television, I would be on my phone. I try not to do it as much anymore because it's like I'm missing out, on what, another thing to watch, another screen to watch. But regardless, it's missing out with that togetherness, I guess you can say. So what do you think? What do you miss most about renting movies? Are you of a generation that never did? Did I when did Blockbuster go? So Blockbuster closed in 2014. I'm just trying to figure out. So my son he was 8 when they closed. And I think we did actually go to Blockbuster a few times with him, now that I think about it, because I still have my Blockbuster card. If you've never actually rented a movie or had that experience, or can't remember that experience because you were too young by the time everything, because the Redbox, you could still have done that, and Netflix for a long time, you could have them send you a rental DVD. It was like, a DVD or whatever. They stopped that obviously because everything's digital now, but like, and people don't want to wait for the stuff to come in the mail. So like, do you remember any of that? If you aren't from like my own generation or older, is that something that you recall? Do you miss it? Do you want that back? Is that something you might, if you've never experienced it, would you want to experience it? Side note, like, I actually started to follow this girl who is in her early 20s. I want to say like 22, like very early. And she specifically dresses and listens and lives the life of like if she was in the 80s. Her hair is done in the 80s style and everything. And I don't know what it is about it, but like, I think that's awesome. Good for her. That's awesome that you are into it, and it keeps it alive. That's great. But then like, there are other people that I follow that dress in 1950s and or like during the 20s, like, so the Roaring 20s, which at that point for me, that's before me. So like, when you see stuff like if people start doing like, I'm wearing vintage 90s stuff, which it is technically vintage now. Not technically, it is vintage. I don't know how I feel about that, but then again, like, how did it feel for, say, my mom or my dad looking at people who are like, look at these vintage finds, and they're like, that's something that I used to wear, or that's something that I used to have, like, and it's just like, for like this podcast and anything that has to do with nostalgia in general, not even just for millennials, it's for any, baby boomers, anybody that's, even Gen Zers at this point, if you have nostalgic things, which I find hilarious when I see. It's understandable because we're all getting older. The time is not stopping, but I find it funny when they're like, back in the day, back in the 2010s, I'm like, first of all, that was not that long ago. Calm the F down. But at the same time, it's just like, okay, 2010 was 15 years ago at this point. So I'm like, ow. But it is, I just sit there, I'm like, is that really nostalgic for you? And is it? If it is, then I get it, because I have nostalgic things from when I was younger. So it just happens to be a lot longer, far, like, a lot more of a time span away. So if you have rented, do you miss that point of it? Is it just because of that? Because I wanted to do an episode just to kind of segue into that with this question, but I wanted to do an episode regarding us aging, millennials aging, okay, and losing parents. So now that we are the older generation, if you know what I mean, so that the previous generation, so the baby boomers and then the Gen Xers are still, especially like the youngest Gen Xers, where we got time, but I'm just saying, having that, we are the old generation, we are the baby boomers of our from us, how does that make you feel? So I wanted to do something to do wanted to do an episode of that. How, is that something you'd want to listen to? Is that something you think about? Whether you listen to it or not, I'm still going to do it. But I mean, is that something you'd be interested in? So yeah, Blockbuster. I didn't have a whole lot on that because, like I said, we didn't do it as frequently, but it was something that we did do and I did enjoy. And I think that is something that we are missing, like that whole family unit trying to do something together. And I get like people still have get-togethers. It's not like it's everywhere. And I'm going off of my own experiences. I don't have a very close-knit family, or for me, they're not close-knit with me. I've been knitted out. Other than like a few people that I still talk to and whatever. But so maybe I'm a little jaded on this end, but in that respect, is that something that you would wish to bring back? Just kind of like, would we want to bring back some of these old, there's a lot of stores closing down that I've been reading about recently, which is, it really sucks because at some point, are we going to get to a point where there's only going to be like 1 or 2 stores to choose from and most of it will be online, and then we don't go out at all? Is that going to be a possible future? I don't know. At the rate it's going, I don't know. So your feelings, please leave a comment. I'd be very much interested in what you have to say, and any other podcasts that I've done, please comment. I ask questions usually at the end or throughout that I am genuinely interested in knowing. Like I don't ask the questions just to have that be part of the podcast. I'd very much like to know what your thoughts are, and any input that you have with regards to the podcast. Anything you want me to add? I think I've gotten better with the editing. I think I've gotten better with my setup. I kind of wanted to just I was trying to make it better. So anytime you think that you have an idea or want to help with, I'm all ears. I very much want to know what your thoughts, the audience's thoughts. I'd very, very much like to know. So that's that. I know this is like a shorter episode that I usually have longer ones because I go off on a tangent, but I had my notes. I was pretty specific with it. So thank you so much for listening. I do appreciate every single one of you that has followed me on Spotify. I have like 41 followers now. It doesn't sound like a lot, but to me that's 41 people I don't even know. Maybe I might know like 2 or 3, but for the most part I don't. And that's pretty cool to be reaching people. And please let that spread. That would be awesome. And please comment. I'd very much like to know your thoughts. And also, if you want to go to my website and check out the blog, I'm going to be updating that, and also the YouTube channel, That 80s Child. I have all of these podcasts are up, and I have some other videos to which I will be adding to. I have some ideas and some thoughts that I have planned out. I haven't done it yet. I have to record one, and then I'm going to test run it, and we'll see how that goes. Cinema and Controller, to which I was teasing for a while now. We actually got our first episode recorded. I just have to edit it and put in some bells and whistles, and that should be up within the week. So we'll have our first ever Cinema and Controller episode like 2 years later. But like we're doing it. We're getting stuff done. So yeah, I also have a Substack. I don't know how well that is. I don't know how good it's free. I don't have if you want to subscribe, and if you want to even pledge you will subscribe once I have, or you can subscribe, but if you have paid subscription, if you'd like to, I think they have a thing where it's just like you pledge when I do get to that point. I'm not there. I only have 1 post right now, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure that's something I'm going to continually pursue, but I'm just kind of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, kind of thing. So thank you so much again. I appreciate every single one of you, and I hope you will listen to the rest of the podcast and the next one that'll be out next Sunday. Every Sunday I will be having a new episode weekly on Sunday. So thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of That 80s Child, the Generation Y, and my name is Gabrielle, and I will talk to you in the next. Bye.